Ben Shapiro, political commentator, columnist, radio show host, and editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire. Good to have you, Ben. Welcome.
And thanks for having me.
So, on Wednesday, President Trump tweeted that transgender folk will no longer be allowed to serve in the military. Now, there's some ambiguity as to how the Department of Defense is going to implement that, if they're going to implement that. But what hit me is how quickly people were to jump and call President Trump hateful and bigoted towards the transgender community. Now, here's where I'm curious. President Obama, it wasn't until 6 years into his presidency that his administration did any form of review of the policy. But I don't recall him ever being called hateful or bigoted or anything like that. So talk to me, Ben, what is this? Why are we calling one bigoted and one not? Is bigotry based on bigoted actions alone, or is it opposing political inclinations? What's going on here?
Well, it's definitely political rationalization. I mean, the fact is that Barack Obama campaigned in 2008 against gay marriage, and by the time we hit 2012, anybody who was against gay marriage was a bigoted homophobe. So this is the way that it works. Democrats are allowed to be against something and then for something, but if you're later than the Democrat to that issue, then you are left out in the cold. On this one, I mean, Barack Obama decided to do something politically polarizing in his final days as a sop during the election cycle, and it was pretty obviously a sop during the election cycle to the LGBT community. The fact is that this has never been a major issue in the military. The military has always had standards, pretty rigorous standards as far as who gets to serve. You do not have a right to serve in the military. There are lots of people who are 4F, who are barred from serving. And mental illness is one reason that you can be barred from serving in the United States military. And this is not a place for social experimentation. I mean, this is a place for winning wars. My only problem with what President Trump did was not the actual activity. My problem with President Trump is that he should have let General Mattis lay this out. He should have let the Secretary of Defense lay this out and do a full-bodied explanation of why it is that this measure is necessary. I think doing it in a tweet looked a little bit tossed off and a little bit disrespectful of people who are transgender who are already serving in the military. The Pentagon right now is already saying they don't know what the policy looks like because they haven't had too much guidance from the White House. But I think the overall point that Trump is making is, of course, exactly correct. And I look forward to the military implementing policies that are more focused on promoting our ability to win wars and less focused on social justice warrior stuff from college campuses.
So on that note, let's talk about safe zones on campuses. So yesterday you were on Capitol Hill and you basically threw out, or you identified the logical flaw of the safe zone narrative. An irony that always fascinated me was that the same community who is demanding these safe zones is the same community who's instigating these riots and these violent behaviors simply because someone is coming to their campus who they disagree with. What's going on here, Ben?
I mean, they believe that in order to ensure a safe space, they have to keep out people who are unsafe, and that means people with unsafe views. The real problem here, as I testified on Capitol Hill yesterday, is that there's an enormous group of people on the left who now identify verbiage with violence. They identify words with violence. If I don't like something that you say and I have an emotional reaction to it and it causes me stress and I have a physical reaction, well, that's you actually doing harm to me, and now I am justified in using physical violence in order to prevent you from doing further harm to me. This is really dangerous stuff. And I think that it springs from an ideology that has become increasingly prevalent that suggests that anything that I say that disagrees with you politically is an attack on your identity, particularly if I'm a straight white male.
That demographic has come under quite some fire these last couple of years. And of course, it was boosted late last year when a report came out indicating that 60% of white Christian men voted for Trump. Now, there are some negative connotations that went along with that, such as white Christian men supposedly being apathetic towards womanizing or racism or things that people were affiliating with Trump. But a report came out a couple days ago that said that 75% of white Christian women supported Trump between the ages of 18 and 35. And the report showed that all the preceding age demographics had a higher percentage of Trump supporters. So do you think this report, Ben, do you think the support counters the original narrative?
Yeah, I mean, I think the original narrative was stupid in the first place. I don't think that it was a group of people who decided that we're fine with infidelity, we're fine with racism or sexism or homophobia or any of this kind of stuff. I don't think that's what's going on. I think that what happened with Trump is that there is a real backlash to a Democratic Party that has decided to focus on intersectionality as a political goal, that they think that if they divide us all up among our various racial and identity groups and then tell us all that we're victimized by American society and make the straight white man and the straight white woman the sort of victimizers in the system, there's going to be a backlash to that, and that's what you saw. I think that Trump said to a lot of people, there's no reason you should feel guilty if you're not doing anything bad. And a lot of people said, well, that sounds about right to me.
Hey, so here at the Christian Broadcast Network, we do cover a whole spectrum of cultural and political issues, but we always want to make sure that the foundation of what we do is glorifying to God. Now, Ben, I understand with what you do, you're not just doing it to be right, but you're doing it to make an impact. We can all tell by the influence that you have. So I'll ask you, what is your hope and your prayer for the America of tomorrow?
Well, I mean, I just hope and pray that there is a restoration of belief in a God-driven Judeo-Christian value system that provides the undergirding for a social fabric that we can all share together and that allows us freedom from government so that we can function together in a thriving society. Because without a common set of values and a common set of goals, it's going to be very difficult for the republic to survive, I think, in a positive way.
All right, well, Ben, really appreciate your time and all the influence that you have. We hope to see you again soon.
Thanks so much.